It's not as if she were a maniac, a raving thing. She just goes a little mad sometimes. We all go a little mad sometimes.
Hey, Cassettes, and welcome back to the Black Case Diaries. We're three old friends learning everything we can about movies and TV, and hopefully teaching you in the process. I'm Adam.
I'm Marcy.
I'm Robin.
Welcome.
Welcome
to the end of Frightening February.
Yes. It's pretty much over, folks.
Yep.
Pretty much.
Yep. This is Adam's favorite
Finally.
time.
Adam is
February.
devastated. He's so sad.
Oh, woe is me. I'll never be forced to watch horror again.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, that is really
That's so funny that he thinks that.
Well, Frightening February is almost over. Our final episode of the month is about a film that has been deemed by some as the mother of all horror films. It's the movie that appears at the forefront of your mind when you hear the name of its director, Mr. Alfred Hitchcock.
Ooh.
It's the film that not only surprised audiences in 1960, but paved the way for many other films like it. We're talking about Psycho. Alfred Hitchcock was known as the master of suspense, but none of his films from the 1950s were as shocking as Psycho. Up to this point, most horror films were gothic romances, and this was the film that shook up the genre, setting horror on a course that led us to where we are today.
Yeah.
The film was groundbreaking in more ways than one. It implied that the lead female character was having sex outside of marriage. It also showed a flushing toilet. It's often debated on whether or not it was the first to do so. Not to mention that it also featured one of the most chilling performances in horror history.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So grab a blanket and some popcorn, and make sure to turn out the light. It's time to get scared with Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Adam, was this the first time you ever watched this movie?
It certainly was. Yes.
I'm sure you have lots of thoughts.
indeed.
Yeah.
I do. It was different than I imagined it to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like still hit me in the way I expected it to.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing for me was that there was so much more movie than I thought there would be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Yep.
everyone immediately thinks about the shower.
Yes.
Yep.
The shower scene,
Yep.
the iconic moment, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And I was like, that's the climax, right? That's kind of toward the end.
You were fooled.
Yep.
Dude, that's like halfway.
Yeah.
Not even.
It's a
Yeah,
third
it's like
away.
a third. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh,
What?
if you- yeah.
This character's now gone? Excuse me?
The perfect reaction.
Yeah,
It's-
I was-
this is what
I
people
was-
were probably.
Yeah.
Definitely what people were thinking
Yeah.
when it came
Yep.
out.
Yeah.
If you are listening to this episode and you have never seen Psycho, the movie is over 60 years old,
Yeah.
but go watch it before
Yeah.
listening to us talk about it because it's going to be so much better to listen to us talk about
Yeah,
it if you've
it's-
seen it.
Truly, I honestly don't want to put it on the scare meter.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's not a scary horror movie. It's not. It doesn't have monsters.
It's a suspense thriller.
Yeah.
But the suspense on the suspense meter, if there
Yeah.
was one,
Yeah.
it is high. I was in bed, but I was like on the edge of my bed, you know, in the way that you'd be on the edge of your seat. Like I
Yeah.
didn't, because like the shower scene happened and it wasn't
Yeah.
even close to being over, and I
Yeah.
was like, now I have no idea what's
Right.
gonna
Yeah.
happen.
Like
now
what is going to happen? Yeah.
Now it's all new to me.
Yeah.
So I
Yep.
would like the final 2/3 of the movie were completely new because I
Yeah.
had no prior knowledge.
Yeah, this movie for me was a really defining moment of my childhood. Not because I watched it as a child, because I didn't. I didn't watch this movie until I think I might have been in high school
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
college. But I was terrified to watch this movie. I was so scared to watch it. I saw it eventually at the Ohio Theater here in Columbus.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, My dad told me about this movie. I think I was very, very young. He told me about this movie, and he would play film music and classical music. He played the music.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
Yeah.
geez.
And he told me about this movie.
Yeah.
And I was afraid to take a bath or a shower by myself for years.
I
Because
believe it,
of
man.
the story that he told. Yeah, he's telling me about, he's watching her in the shower and they just, stabby McStab, And I'm like, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
My sister Rita had this big book of movies and she was like, come here, Robin. Come here. It's okay.
Yeah.
And she opened the book and she showed me all the behind the scenes stuff for all these movies. And she was like, see, show me a picture of The Godfather.
Yeah.
She's like, you see this bed? It's covered in blood. That's not real blood. It's not real.
Yeah,
It's
no,
not
it's
real.
fake.
So, the movies aren't real. He was just telling you about a movie scene. It's not, but I was still afraid. So, this movie has a profound effect on me because of that.
I saw it at the Ohio Theater, I believe, with you. So
Yes.
there was that. So I heard you telling me all about that, and then we watched the movie. And it was like, wow,
Yeah.
dang, okay.
Crazy.
The movie, I expected it to be so much scarier.
Yeah.
Because I was so afraid of it. And
Yeah.
we watched it. It was like, oh, okay.
I can handle this.
Yeah, it's
My
fine.
imagination was way worse.
Exactly. And
Yeah,
that's always
yeah.
how it is. Your
Yes.
imagination always is going to be way worse than what. Yeah.
We
Yes.
talked about it last week, and how
Yeah.
it's really scary until they reveal what the monster actually looks
Yeah.
like.
So, you might not know this, or maybe you do. This movie's based on a book.
Aha!
Ah, look at that.
So before we talk about the film, let's learn a little bit about the book and the real-life crime that inspired the story.
Oh boy.
In November of 1957, law enforcement found the body of Bernice Worden hanging in a shed belonging to Ed Gein. Gein was a reclusive man that lived on a farm in Plainfield, Wisconsin. In his house, they found various pieces of human corpses, most famously human faces hanging on the wall.
Jesus Christ.
Gein eventually confessed to killing 2 women, Mary Hogan and Bernice Worden. He also admitted to grave robbing and dismembering bodies. Gein was sent to the Mendota Mental Health Institute, where he remained until his death. The story of how a local man in a small town managed to commit atrocities became the inspiration for many stories and films. The horrifying reality that crimes of this nature could really happen anywhere gripped newspaper readers all across the state, and even the country. One such person affected by the story was Robert Bloch. Bloch was a writer living in Milwaukee when he first read about the Gein murders. He was fascinated as to how Gein was able to get away with his crimes for as long as he did. The story inspired him to write a novel loosely based on the true story. He pulled the few details he had about Gein and developed the plot of Psycho. Bloch's main character was also a recluse. But how would someone with little to no friends find their victims? Bloch made the character a motel owner to give him access to out-of-town guests. He also decided that his murderer, Norman Bates, would commit the crimes in a dissociative fugue, a temporary state when a person suffers from memory loss. Bloch gave his book a couple of twists. For one, Norman Bates is not only a murderer, but he believes that his late mother is still alive and committing the murders herself. The other twist was that Bloch introduced a lead character, who many readers believed to be the hero of the story, and then he killed her off long before the story was over.
I mean,
Bait and switch.
Yeah. It was clear that this novel was a pure shocker to the average reader in the late 1950s, and Bloch had taken a huge risk. Psycho was published in 1959, less than 2 years after the discovery of Ed Gein's farm. It was at this time that popular horror director Alfred Hitchcock was finishing up production of his most recent film, North by Northwest, and was looking for a topic for his next film. He had seen a New York Times article about a new thriller by Robert Bloch and bought the book to read while traveling. After reading the book, Hitchcock called up Peggy Robertson, his personal assistant, and told her that he had their next subject. Hitchcock then bought the rights to the book anonymously for $9,000.
all right. So now, of course, for those of you who haven't seen this movie, definitely go watch it. You
Yes.
you should have done that already by the time you got to this part of the podcast.
Please watch it. We are going to just talk about the whole thing.
Yeah,
Yes.
it will be entirely spoiled, so
Yeah.
definitely watch it first.
Yes.
Here's a summary for those of you who maybe haven't seen it in a while. Marion Crane is on the lam after stealing $40,000 from her employer so that she can run away with the man with whom she's been having an affair. Driving on the back roads to avoid the police, she comes across the Bates Motel and decides to stay for the night. She meets Norman Bates, a seemingly harmless young man that gives her a room to use for the night. Norman has a troubling relationship with his mother, who Marion never sees. Later on that night, Marion takes a shower before bed under the watchful eye of Norman. While showering, a dark figure with an obscured face enters the room and stabs Marion to death. Several days later, Marion's sister and her lover arrive at the Bates Motel looking for Marion.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, Adam already talked about how surprised he was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it totally threw me off. I had no clue that there was going to be that much more movie.
Yeah.
And so much more to
Yes.
Norman Bates.
Yeah.
And it was just like...
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
He's this young, attractive man.
Yep.
Who's like quiet and kind of sad and unassuming.
Yeah.
And so even going into the movie, I knew he was the murderer. But it's like you watch the movie and you're like, oh, I did not expect to like him
Yep.
Yeah.
as much as I do.
Yes, exactly.
You like have a little sympathy for him at first.
Yes.
And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, he's
And I
Yeah.
almost, there was a point like after the shower scene where I was just like, are we sure that it was him?
Yeah.
Is there another person involved here?
Right.
And I was just
Yeah.
like, I like
Right.
was gaslighting myself into believing
Yeah.
it was somebody else.
Yeah.
Because he's so clearly, he dresses as his mother
Yeah.
when he kills her.
Yeah.
He's wearing the wig
Yeah,
and
and
everything.
then his
And the gown.
his reaction to the scene after
Yeah.
snapping back to himself
Yeah.
and realizing what happened, his reaction was like,
Oh
"So
my gosh.
did he do
Yeah, he was so, he seemed so surprised
Yeah.
and just, so horrified.
it?"
Yeah. All right. So let's get into how it was made.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
do that.
Alfred Hitchcock made several book-to-movie adaptations throughout his career, but when it came to Psycho, he was afraid of the audience finding out the twist ending before watching his feature.
Interesting. I
Yeah.
mean, you can't stop people from reading a book you based it on.
Or
I mean-
can you?
If you're Alfred Hitchcock, you can.
Oh,
And the
shit.
book's only been out for
Oh,
a
snap.
few months.
Yeah.
Oh no.
He was so adamant that no one knew the ending that Hitchcock famously bought as many copies of the book as he could
Aha.
in order to keep people from reading it before they see the movie. He also spread rumors that he was looking for someone to play the role of Mrs. Bates, and he got calls from several agents offering their clients for consideration. There were no guests allowed on the set, and screenwriter Joseph Stefano was not permitted to discuss the script with anyone.
Wow, that's crazy.
Oh,
Genius, though,
snap.
to spread that rumor. Oh,
Yeah. Hitchcock even altered how the films were shown. Back then, it was customary for audiences to arrive at the theater whenever they wanted. If the film was in progress, they would sit down and stick around for the next showing so they could catch the beginning. Hitchcock knew that this could ruin the surprise, so he demanded that theaters not allow viewers in unless the film had not started yet. This eventually became the standard for movie viewing.
Yeah, he said that people would come in and they would be like, "Well, where's Janet Leigh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's billed as in the
exactly.
movie. She's a movie star.
Yeah.
Where the heck did she
Where-
go?
Where is she?
Yeah.
Yep.
I can't imagine just walking into a theater with a movie in progress.
Right.
Like, what are you,
Like-
crazy?
I feel like, I mean, you'd just be so confused at first,
Right.
and then you'd have to wait.
And then, but also
Until-
the best part though is that
Yeah.
you're allowed to just sit there.
That's true.
And let
too.
the movie start
Wait
over.
it out. Yeah.
It's like the drive-in.
Yeah. They
The
do
late
it at the
night,
drive-in.
yeah. The first writer to try their hand at a script for Psycho was James Kavanaugh, a writer that had worked on Hitchcock's TV series Alfred Hitchcock Presents. But Hitchcock felt that the first script was too dull, and he turned to Ned Brown, an agent that he very much respected. Brown suggested Joseph Stefano, a young writer that had worked on 2 previous productions. But Hitchcock wasn't impressed with Stefano's work, and he didn't like working with young writers. But when the two met, Stefano explained how he would frame the story. Since the reveal of Norman Bates' mother had to be a secret, Stefano pitched that the film's story should focus on Marion Crane, a woman who is having an affair and is on the run after embezzling money. She's gotten herself into a bad situation, but she's decided to fix it by returning the money. Feeling good about her decision, she goes to take a cleansing shower, only for someone to come in and murder her. After Stefano finished, Hitchcock said, "We could get a big star to play that part," and Stefano knew that he had landed the job.
Imagine how good that felt.
Yeah,
He's
like,
like,
you got
I
him.
got him.
Hooked him in.
I got him. Yes.
Yeah.
I did it.
He's
Yeah.
not thinking about the script anymore. He's
Yeah.
moving on. 'Cause
Yeah,
he likes
he's
it.
thinking who's gonna
Yes.
star in it.
He's not worried.
Yes.
He's decided it's me already.
According to Stefano, Hitchcock did not discuss characters and their motivations. Whenever he would ask about that, Hitchcock would only tell him that it was up to the writer. He had complete faith in Stefano. At one point, Hitchcock and his wife Alma went on a vacation, and he asked Stefano to write a scene while he was gone. When he returned, he took the scene home and came back the next day to tell Stefano, Alma loved it. Because Hitchcock famously consulted his wife about every project, this truly meant that Stefano was on the right track for Psycho.
Yeah.
Oh,
Very,
that's very
very
sweet.
cool.
If he
That's very
said
cool.
if he said that Alma loved something, that was his way of saying that he loved it.
Ah,
Because he really it was like he couldn't say that.
couldn't. Yeah.
So but trust me, if Alma didn't love it, he didn't love it.
yeah. Oh,
Because he really trusted her opinion.
her opinion.
So if she said
Yeah.
no, he'd be like, then no,
All right.
it is. It's
Nope.
a no.
Amazing. There were several themes explored in Psycho, but one of the biggest through lines is the theme of mothers. Mothers are mentioned by several characters in the first act of the film before the introduction of Norman Bates. Once his character is on screen, there are several mentions and allusions to his mother, who is seemingly watching from her window in the house.
Yeah.
Oh,
There's this
man.
ever-present looming mother complex thing going on here.
Okay.
You know, when she is in the hotel room with her lover.
Yeah.
We can even have dinner, but respectably. In my house, with my mother's picture on the mantel, and my sister helping me broil a big steak for 3.
And after the steak, did we send Sister to the movies, turn Mama's picture to the wall?
Sam.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And like that whole, just
Yeah.
that whole concept of disappointing mothers, or
Yep.
domineering mothers, like
Yep.
they want
hammer it in.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
throughout the whole movie. Although Hitchcock had made several films in color during the 40s and 50s, he knew that Psycho had to be black and white because of the amount of gore. He also decided that the film would be a small production that cost less than $1 million. At this point in his career, Hitchcock was a household name and would have been able to secure much more funding, but he insisted. He also used the same crew that would film episodes of his TV series. When asked why he wanted to do this, Hitchcock reportedly referenced another studio that was making low-budget films at the time that he considered to be low quality. But those movies were doing very well at the box office. He wanted to see what would happen if someone made a better low-budget film. So he's talking about House on Haunted Hill. They didn't say that, but that's
what they were.
like the kind of stuff they're talking about. They're talking about the low budget 1950s thrillers
Yeah.
that were making a lot of money. But if you stack them up next to a Hitchcock film,
Yeah.
and you can see
Yeah.
there's definitely a
The
difference in
differences. Yeah.
presentation and
Yeah.
and that's that's what Hitchcock was getting at. He was like,
Yeah.
what if we made a good low budget movie?
Yeah.
So we'll make even more money.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's kind of what he was thinking.
It's
Smart.
really interesting. I wonder why so many studios don't think about that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because it's possible.
Because Hitchcock was at the end of his deal with Paramount, they agreed to distribute Psycho. But the studio had little faith in the film, thinking that a low-budget movie wouldn't do well. Much like today.
Mm-hmm.
In order to make the movie, Hitchcock used his production company, Shamley Productions, to fund the picture. Although Psycho was a Paramount picture, it was filmed almost exclusively on the Universal backlot. Hitchcock hated filming on location because it wasn't a controlled environment. One scene that takes place in a used car lot is one of the only moments in the film shot on location.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I get that. When you don't have control, it's, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
If you're a director like Hitchcock.
Yeah, where he's
it's
like, everything has to be
He
precise.
wanted everything to be, yes.
Yeah,
He controlled
lighting
everything.
and- yeah, just
Yeah.
everything.
The opening scene is a wide panning shot of Phoenix, Arizona, and the exterior was a real hotel. The film is all about subverting the expectations of the audience, and the opening scene was a huge part of that. The passion between Marion and Sam was meant to tell the audience that they would be a major romance plot in the film.
Yes. I believed it.
Yeah.
The hope was that when Norman Bates appears later on, audiences would assume that there would be a sort of love triangle between the characters.
Ah,
Yep.
interesting.
I mean, you see where they kind of play on that, you know. He's like, "Come have dinner with me,"
Yeah.
you know. And, you know, you're not gonna actually go into town to get dinner, right? Like, you know, it's just simple. I'm just making sandwiches.
Yeah.
You know, let's just talk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
The house and motel were both built on the back lot. The most important feature of the sets was that the house had to be taller than the motel, looming over it, and there had to be steps from the house to the motel at the bottom. One really funny story the assistant director told was that the night shot,
Okay.
where it's the motel and you see the house and the mother's up there, you know, in
Yeah.
the window, and so they were getting ready to film that, and especially the rain because there's
Yeah.
rain everywhere. And it was supposed to be obviously it's cloudy night because it's pouring rain.
Yeah.
And the assistant director was like, I thought of everything. I had everything. I didn't want to let Hitchcock down.
Yeah.
Oh,
You know, so
yeah.
he was like, I had everything like planned to
All
a
set
T.
up. Yeah.
And then they started filming, but then Hitchcock was like, cut. They turned to the assistant director and he was like, you didn't plan this out very well. And he was like, and I was shocked. I was like, what's wrong?
What
What's the plan?
Yeah.
And Hitchcock just pointed up at the sky and this beautiful,
big old-
massive full moon
Yeah.
Oh no!
behind the house.
Ah, no.
Dang it.
And so the grip guys spent the entire time like in the scene, they're holding a stuff in front to
so you
block out the
can't
moon
see.
the entire
Oh
time.
my lord.
Oh, the one dang
I know.
thing.
Big old detail that goes
Big
right under your
ol'-
nose.
Yeah.
I mean, the photo of the Bates like house with the
Yeah.
motel and a full moon
Yeah.
is a beautiful picture.
Oh yeah.
But it's like it was supposed to be a rainy night, so
Yeah.
they like
Can't
couldn't.
see the moon tonight, man.
Yeah. The shower scene is the most famous moment in Psycho for several reasons. It tapped into the fear that we are never truly alone or safe. It also was a major surprise that the film's biggest star was dying only a third of the way through the film. Janet Leigh's performance and Hitchcock's camera work make the scene believable, but it's the music written by Bernard Herrmann that made the scene iconic. The piercing sound of the strings mirror the sound of a shrill scream, and the music pierces our ears just before Marion/Janet Leigh screams herself. The music is so famous that even people who haven't seen the film can mimic the theme. It has become synonymous with terror.
Yeah.
It gets used everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. And it's always the same kind of thing. It's like something scary is now revealed.
It's
Yep.
such a like a parody thing.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Yep.
Gone beyond iconic into it's like transcended itself.
I
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's beyond its own thing.
Yes. As the scene comes to a close, the camera zooms in on the still eye of Janet Leigh to emphasize the nothingness behind her eyes. This was an elegant way to show to the audience that she had truly died without showing the body. Leigh was originally supposed to wear contact lenses to show the unmoving eyes, but the lenses at the time weren't advanced enough. She would have had to wear them for several weeks to get used to the lenses, and they didn't want to spend the time. So, she had to act the scene without them. When the camera zooms in, that's Janet Leigh's actual face and eye that she had to keep still for the entire shot.
Incredible.
It was really, really well done.
Yeah. And you know what's really interesting is that the direction that she had been given by Hitchcock
Uh-huh.
was that every time she saw the camera move, she had to move too.
Oh.
That was the direction that he gave her. He told her, every time you see my camera moving, you have to have a motivation. Find motivation for your character to move to.
Uh-huh.
So if you're watching the movie, every time you see like the camera starts to pan, 'cause she's picking up mail. She's what and so it was like this challenge that she had to like think of something to do every time.
Yeah.
So the fact that the camera is moving and she is not is a huge visual trigger that she is dead.
Got it.
And it shows the death
Yep.
very clearly.
Yeah. And there's always that like movie trope that's like they're not dead unless you see the body.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, they did it in Stranger Things.
It's
It's
true.
like a big recent one that I can think of.
It is the golden rule.
Yeah.
If you don't see the death or you don't see the body, they do not die.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. They're just missing currently.
Yeah.
Yep.
The casting in Psycho was a major part of its success. Joseph Stefano felt that the Norman Bates that is portrayed in the novel was not likable enough. So he changed the character from an older man to a young one that seemed vulnerable and sad. This was because once Marion is killed, the movie shifts its focus to Norman, and the audience needed to feel empathy towards his character. Once Stefano described the film version of Norman Bates, Hitchcock immediately suggested that Anthony Perkins play the part. Fortunately, Perkins was available, and Norman Bates would be the role that defined his acting career.
Truly.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Truly. If people say Anthony Perkins, Norman Bates, that's the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah. Before the script had been written, Alfred Hitchcock sent the book to actress Janet Leigh, asking her to consider playing the role of Marion. Leigh wanted to say yes before even reading the book, simply because she wanted to work with Hitchcock. It never bothered her that her character's story ended abruptly, and she was intrigued with how it was going to make the film work. Hitchcock wanted Leigh because he needed a big name to draw in audiences and make them feel safe. He knew that audiences would believe that the film would not kill her character. This made the infamous shower scene so much more shocking.
Yeah. This is something that people still believe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Everybody thinks that characters have plot armor, and there's no way that they're going to be killed off.
Yeah.
And 98% of the time, people are correct.
Yeah. Yep.
Most of the time, it's like, well, they're not going to kill you.
Yeah.
You're the lead.
Yeah. Like.
The entire Jurassic World trilogy.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
Plot armor, the series.
yes. And plot armor, the thing is that people get really, really upset when they break this rule.
Yeah.
But it's so effective,
Yep.
and nobody ever forgets it.
Yep.
And it becomes something that people truly love.
Switching characters like that is such a weird thing that people don't expect.
Yeah.
You expect to
Yeah.
watch the arc of a character throughout a whole movie.
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
like with Marion here, we expected to see her whole arc of
Yep.
stealing the money and running away, changing, realizing that she's being crazy and deciding to give the money back
Yep.
and like turn everything back around.
Yeah.
But we don't.
Right.
And
Yep.
that is such a like rug out from under your feet kind
Yeah.
of thing
Yeah.
that you
Yep.
can't help but be affected by it.
It's
Yeah.
really tough to do it and then make people care about the next character.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for
Yep.
sure.
Because, stories, so many stories are character driven.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so if you get rid that's why characters have plot armor and people don't want to kill them off.
Yeah.
Because if your story is character driven and you get rid of your character,
Yep.
Yeah.
you're going to have to find
Yeah.
someone new to drive your story.
Yeah.
And often it's very difficult to get people to care
Yeah.
Yeah.
about the next person. So this is generally just something people don't do.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I'll be honest, I kind of was almost as, if not more, bummed out about the private detective.
Yes.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
I really liked him.
Yeah.
He was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was.
Damn
He was
it.
Smart.
Yeah. I like the way he
Yes.
talked, and he was totally winning. He
Yep.
was totally beating Norman Bates in the
Yeah.
discussion. He was like
Yep.
he was like, clearly
Yep.
you are involved in this because of
Yeah.
how nervous you're acting.
Yep.
And it's just like, he's winning, yes, and
Yes.
then he
Woo,
just
and
doesn't
then-
anymore.
Yeah.
About halfway into the movie, the audience is introduced to Marion's sister, Lila, played by Vera Miles. Miles was meant to be in Hitchcock's film Vertigo, but she had gotten pregnant. So because she was contracted to make another film with the director, she was cast as Lila. It's difficult to come into a movie that has just lost its seemingly main character and make the audience care about your role in the story. Hitchcock knew that Miles could make that part work.
I love how caring she was, though. She
Yeah.
immediately was like, I don't care. I'm going to go find her.
Mhm.
Like, you know,
Yes.
if you're not willing to go right now, then I'm going to.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh, yeah.
So sweet.
John Gavin played Sam Loomis, the man with which Marion was having an affair before she left town. Gavin would go on to play Julius Caesar in Spartacus, which also premiered in 1960. He had many TV and film roles and would make an appearance on the Alfred Hitchcock Hour a couple of years later.
Yeah.
Nice.
He was a pretty cool, like, you know, kind of a sleaze at the beginning.
Yeah.
But, you know, once he realized, oh shoot, Marion's missing, he's like, now I'm with you, I'm helping.
Yeah.
So and it was cool because he did a couple of cool moments where when they were trying to distract Norman and all that stuff.
Yeah.
The way he like stood firmly in the door when he knew that Lila was sneaking away
Yeah.
to the house, and those kinds of moments where it's just like, you know, they're working so well as a team to
Yeah.
beat Norman, and
Yep.
it's cool.
I love it. You know, you have Marion who was able to really carry the movie for the first part of it, and then she's gone, and then we need two characters to take
Fill
her
her.
place.
Yeah.
Because it's,
man.
you know,
Yeah.
it was such a weight, you know, that
Yeah.
they had two people do it.
Yep.
And I love their dynamic together. Like when these two characters enter,
Yeah.
they have plot armor.
Yeah.
It's like
Right.
Yeah.
they're not going to do it twice in the same movie.
Right? Yeah.
And it's interesting, kind of like they have these two characters to fill because they create such a build up
Yeah.
and then just cutting it off. But it's like, well, we still got 2/3 of movie.
Right.
So, you know, it was. I think it was smart to do two because it's
Yeah.
like now you have both of these characters who play off each other
Yeah.
and can work together. So
Yeah.
Yes.
it gives them an easier kind of in
Yep.
to like
Yep.
continue
Right.
the
Yep.
investigation, as it were.
So let's talk about the music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this movie would be fine without the music, right?
Disagree. Not gonna play into that joke. No yes and here.
Wow.
Like we were talking about a little bit before, when a piece of music transcends everything that it was made for, then like it's beyond
Yeah.
anything
Yeah.
else. So you can't separate the two.
It's truly iconic.
Yeah.
For the second time this month, we're bringing up Bernard Herrmann, a renowned film composer of Hollywood's golden age. Herrmann composed nearly 100 films over the course of his career, like Citizen Kane and Taxi Driver. He wrote the soundtrack to a lot of Hitchcock's films, like Vertigo, The Man Who Knew Too Much, North by Northwest, and of course, Psycho.
Of course.
By the time that Psycho was released, Hitchcock and Herrmann had worked together for several years. Although Hitchcock was famous for managing every aspect of his movie, he left the score open for Herrmann to work on independently. Because the film was low budget, there wasn't a lot of money for music. Herrmann had a limited range of instruments available to him. He embraced this challenge and attempted to write a, quote, black and white score for a black and white movie. He heavily utilized the string section, placing mutes on the strings that made them sound dry and cold in comparison to strings in other classic Hollywood scores.
You know,
Oh.
I noticed that.
Yeah.
I didn't really understand why
They
or
sounded so
how,
different.
but it was
Yeah.
like, what is going on with those
Yeah.
with those cellos right
Yeah.
now?
It's like,
Or whatever they
yeah,
were.
it's so,
I think it's because when listening to a large string instrument like that, whether it's
Yeah.
cello, bass, violin, those kinds of things, every note, at least in those kinds of movies, they come in slow, like,
Yeah.
slow in and slow out. Whereas here,
Yeah,
you've got the,
he mutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
it's just like sound.
Sound.
And it's so jarring because
Yeah.
you're so used to it one way.
Yes.
Hearing it this way
Is
is
what?
just off-putting.
Yeah.
Cello?
Cello.
Cello. It's a bass.
Yeah. Oh, good movie. Good movie.
Oh, and I want to talk about this black and white score for a black and white movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what he means is that when you make something in black and white, like Alfred Hitchcock did with Psycho, people often think that black and white it's simpler, right?
Uh-huh.
Sure.
But the thing about black and white is it actually gives you so much freedom to do a lot of things that you wouldn't be able to do in color.
Okay.
You know? So because the way it works, like, I mean, of course you have to do some special tricks and stuff, right?
Yeah.
You got to paint women's lips green so they look red,
Yep.
Yeah.
you know,
Yep.
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
When you take away the distraction of color,
Yeah.
you know, there's so much focus.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there's just such a wider range of things that you can accomplish.
Yep.
And it's kind of like what he did with the orchestra. He doesn't have a full orchestra,
Yeah.
and so he's forced to use what he has, and that
Right.
helps with the creative process, and it helps
Right.
him.
Yes.
It helps him come up with these solutions to problems and
Yeah.
these cool ideas, you know, where just
Yeah.
using the strings and not really having a percussion section and having to use other instruments almost as percussion.
Yes, because in every other score, those hits of when the murder is happening, the sound, you know there'd be drums in that.
Yes.
Yeah.
In every other movie, it's like bam, bam, bam.
Yeah.
But you don't. But
Yeah.
the violins do all the work.
Yep.
And the way you described it as like, how they are limited, but also free to do other things, right?
Yeah.
Imagine, right, picture the scene, like they're down by the motel looking up at the house, that image with the moon and all that stuff that
Yeah.
you're just talking about. In black and white, it almost becomes this beautiful contrast painting,
Yeah.
Yeah.
without color, but you're relying so much on the light and dark values, and it just pops.
Yeah.
Man. Even in grayscale, black and
Yeah.
white, it just pops right off the screen. The moon is so bright against the silhouette of the house. It's like you can't, in color, it would be washed. You would see the green of the trees surrounding. You'd see whatever color the house is. All that stuff gone from black and white. And in the same way of music, that limitation breeds all this creativity to create it in like an interesting way that you couldn't do otherwise. I mean,
Right.
I feel like I'm repeating what you said a little bit, but it's really true. It's like creative solutions.
Yeah, it's creative problem solving. From the moment that the film begins, Bernard Herrmann alerts the audience that they are watching a true thriller. The music hardly lets the viewer take a breath, even in seemingly mild scenes. But the moment that makes all movie lovers cringe, the part of the score that can turn your blood cold, is the infamous music during Marion's shower sequence. It's a harsh and unsettling sound, and it was unlike any film music that came before it. It made the scene infinitely more terrifying because it was, in some ways, scarier than the movie itself.
Yep.
If you hadn't like jumped
Yeah.
at what was happening,
Yeah.
you certainly jumped at the sound of it.
You're in a dark theater. It's 1960. Janet Leigh, a movie star,
Yeah.
is in this brand new movie that you're watching.
Yep.
She's the main character,
Yep.
it seems. And she's taking a shower. You hear this ungodly musical sting
Yep.
in the movie. You're absolutely going to jump out of your skin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have
Yep.
no idea that this is going to happen.
Yeah.
Because how could she get murdered?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And in
Exactly.
such an intimate and sacred place
Yep.
like the shower.
Yep.
Yep.
It's horrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, like 1 second before that, something that part of the scene that I've never really like absorbed or seen
Yeah.
was like the shot from within the shower,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and you can just about see through the curtain, and
Yes.
you
Yeah,
see
you
the doorway
see
just
just
like
a-
darken,
Yeah.
because you know the door just opened.
Yep.
Because
Yep.
with the
You
door
see a
closed, it's all
figure.
light, and it's
Yeah.
just now
Yep.
it's all dark. It's like, oh
Yep.
my.
Unbelievably, Hitchcock actually didn't want to use any music for the shower scene. He thought the sound of Marion's scream and her struggling would be more effective. But Herman disagreed and wrote music for the scene anyway. Later on, Hitchcock approached Herman and told him that the scene wasn't working and that he might need music.
Oh, well,
Oh.
gee willikers.
Look at that.
Herman happily offered the music that he had secretly written, and Hitchcock agreed that it fit the scene perfectly.
Nice.
And he wrote it anyway. And
Yep.
then Hitchcock came to him, was like, I'm gonna need music after all.
Yep.
And he said, well, you know, I did write something, if you'd like to hear it.
Wow, that's so funny.
Thought you might come back.
I had a feeling.
I am curious, though, to see it without music.
Yeah.
You
Just
can.
Yeah?
There is a version of it without the music.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm just
There you
curious,
go.
like, because I totally agree that there's no way it's going to be as effective.
No.
But I'm curious as to how it would
It's
play out.
It really, to me, without the music, it really reads more like a scene from like an early talkie. It's just this long stretch of no music
Yep.
and the scream and just the sounds.
Oh yeah,
And it feels very old Hollywood.
yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's also scary, but the music really
maybe that's kind of where Hitchcock's head was at initially. It's just
Yeah.
like old Hollywood kind of technique where it's just like
Yeah.
you make them sit with it as it's happening.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about its reception and its legacy. I mean, why are we still talking about it today?
I mean, nobody knows about this movie.
yeah, I know. We really honestly discovered it.
Only 60s kids remember Psycho.
Only 60 kids.
Dude, why is that such a thing?
Psycho was intriguing to so many people when it came out. One major reason for this, as we talked about before, was Hitchcock's plot to have moviegoers not arrive late and to not spoil the surprise. The approximate budget was $806,000, and it ended up with a box office gross of $32 million.
Dude, when was the last time you didn't say million after a budget number?
Yeah.
Never.
No. Yeah.
Never, ever.
Unbelievable.
Yep. So
God.
his little theory, it worked, you know?
Sure did.
Yeah. Which is why it was Hitchcock's highest grossing film at the time. Janet Leigh, in her book Psycho, Behind the Scenes of the Classic Thriller, said that Hitchcock did not have her and Perkins do the usual promotional publicity for the film. Hitchcock, however, did possibly the most public relations for this film. She believed that there were two reasons for this. First was that it ensured that the ending was not leaked. The second reason is that she believed he was putting 110% of himself into the film because he wanted it to succeed and prove Paramount wrong in their assessment of its box office worth. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Paramount was not happy with him
Yeah.
because he was only contracted to do one more movie with them, and he's gonna do this stupid low budget thing that's not gonna make any money.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like he's already contracted to do the next Star Wars or something.
Yeah.
So he's
He
just
was-
going to throw in the towel.
Because he was
Yep.
contracted for Universal next,
Aha.
and
Yeah.
they were like, "Pfft,
So there you
he
go.
doesn't care.
Yeah.
So he's just
Like, are you
he's just
kidding
wasting
me?
it.
Yeah. According to Janet Leigh, the critics had about 60% negative to 40% positive when it first came out.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
This is
it was
something.
not-
This is something that's so interesting about Hitchcock, is that his movies were at first truly received as entertaining
Yeah. Yeah.
ways to entertain the masses. You know,
Wow.
popcorn flicks.
Yep.
And it wasn't until years later that people started to really consider his movies as like cinema,
Yeah.
as like film.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah.
Yep.
upholding things like it's, you know, a truly important piece
The
of
true
film
art
history.
of it. Yeah.
Wow.
Roger Ebert, in his review, said what makes Psycho immortal when so many films are already half forgotten as we leave the theater is that it connects directly with our fears. Our fears that we might impulsively commit a crime, our fears of the police, our fears of becoming the victim of a madman, and of course, our fears of disappointing our mothers.
So much fear in this movie.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Lots
from everybody.
Yeah. Just a whole wide range of it, you know? The fear of the police came directly from Alfred Hitchcock himself, who was terrified of law enforcement. As a child, his father took him to the police station for acting out, and they pretended to arrest him as punishment. He told the story often as an adult, and was not shy about his uneasiness around police.
Bro.
Yeah.
He was terrified
Yeah.
of the police.
Too
They
much.
put him in a cell for a couple of minutes just to kind of shake him up and then let him go.
I know, it was so funny. His daughter was like, they say he would always say it was a cell.
Yeah.
She's like, I doubt it. They probably just left him in a room, you know, for a
Probably
few
on a
minutes.
bench or
Yeah,
something.
they probably just left him alone and made him
Yeah.
think that he was locked up. And, but it's still a bit extreme.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Psycho inspired many films for years to come. For example, the 1996 film Scream used Alfred Hitchcock's trick of casting an A-list actor and promoting the film as if she were the lead. Because Scream was a parody of the horror genre, it made sense for the film to reference one of the most famous thrillers of all time. And the trick worked just as well in 1996 as it did in 1960.
I was gonna say this is one I've never seen Scream, but I knew
Yeah.
about this one too.
Yeah.
It was like, what do you mean she's only in the first few minutes?
Yeah. Scream's marketing was, I mean, they did what Hitchcock did.
Yeah.
They
Yep.
truly, Hitchcock didn't even give Janet Leigh top billing.
No.
They gave Drew Barrymore top billing.
Ah.
They made Drew Barrymore, they cut every trailer.
For sure, the
Yeah.
main
They
character.
cut every trailer out of
Yeah.
her scene.
Yep.
Like, it was that the entire trailer was basically her. Like,
Yeah.
you had a couple of Nev Campbell in there, but
Yeah,
really
but
it was mostly Drew
yeah.
Barrymore.
All right, now we've got some fun facts. Everybody's favorite part.
It's my favorite part of the episode.
Alfred Hitchcock's daughter appears in the movie. She plays Caroline, a coworker of Marion. She often wanted to take part in Hitchcock's movies, but he would only cast her if she was exactly right for the part.
He was like, no Nepo babies here.
No freebies. You gotta be right.
Nice.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so she's the like kind of quirky
Aw.
coworker
Yeah.
in the beginning
She's
of the movie.
like, what? You're not gonna just take some or medicine or whatever and stick it out? She's like,
Yes.
no, I'm gonna sleep it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the film was in black and white, Hitchcock was able to use chocolate syrup to simulate blood instead of red corn syrup.
The famous trivia
Yes.
of
Yep.
Hitchcock of Psycho.
'Tis true, everyone.
Yes.
In the beginning of his filmmaking career, Hitchcock would make cameo appearances in his movies because they needed more people in the crowd shots. After a while, audiences came to expect to see Hitchcock cameos in his movies, and he always delivered. In Psycho, the cameo is very early on when Marion is at work. If you look out the front window, you can see his profile as he stands on the sidewalk.
Yep. You have to be an eagle eye really to see it.
Yeah.
And it's so funny how he's got because of some of these, he's got a famous profile.
Yes.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
And he would use his profile in his TV show.
Yeah.
Hitchcock Presents. So he'd step into and
Yeah.
you would see
Yep.
the profile. Yeah.
Yeah. That's an unusual thing to have. A famous
To be
profile.
famous for,
a
yeah.
famous silhouette, and you're not a cartoon character.
Yeah.
You know? Norman munches on candy corn throughout the film, which makes him appear bird-like. Norman references birds as he does taxidermy as a hobby.
He just stuffs them. You know, like he's not a bird.
Yeah,
Like he doesn't know about birds. He
Yeah,
just
yeah.
stuffs
And
them.
he says he doesn't do other animals because birds are very they don't do much while they're alive, so he
Yeah.
doesn't feel bad about it, I guess.
Yeah.
Because he said he doesn't want to do dogs and foxes and
Yeah.
things like that. But the birds don't seem so
Yeah.
out of place, I guess, which is just the creepiest.
Yeah. Yep.
mentality.
For me, I feel like him chewing on that candy corn was very creepy. I
Oh,
don't know,
yeah.
just the way he did it. Like he would just pop one
Yeah,
in.
and he-
just, like, do
Another
this weird
reason why we
chewing.
shouldn't eat candy corn.
Yeah. It's,
Yeah.
it's evil.
Yeah.
It's the official candy of Norman Bates.
There, yes. See,
Yeah.
there we go. You know what? That's gonna be my new way to say don't eat candy.
There you go. Yeah. The Bates Hotel, sponsored by Brax Candy Corn. Hitchcock liked to scare Janet Leigh, and so she never knew what would be in her dressing room. To her, it seemed as though he was testing out the look of Mother. She enjoyed it and would often play games with him and Anthony Perkins.
Yeah. She said they had a grand old time on set.
Yeah, she said Anthony Perkins is very, very kind.
So you got any final thoughts on this absolutely classic movie? I will say that I am glad to have now seen it,
Yeah.
because now I know all of it.
Yeah, now you're in the
now
club.
You're informed.
Yeah.
Yes, because like I
Yeah.
said, I had just assumed that the famous shower scene was
Right.
Yeah.
like, that was it, man.
That was
Yeah.
near the end of the movie.
And it was near the end, but nope.
Yeah.
There's so much movie left.
See, isn't it cool that you can come into a movie with certain ideas
Yeah.
and then find out that you're wrong
Yeah.
about those ideas?
Yeah.
You might be
See?
wrong about
See?
other horror
See?
movies.
I see where
Yeah.
you're getting at, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to fall for it, bro.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking it's possible.
You know.
Um,
Totally possible.
I guess. Oh, God.
Well, yeah, this movie, I mean, we can't really overstate it. It's incredibly classic.
Yeah.
It led to so many other movies like it because at the time, nothing really was like this.
No. Yeah.
It really was kind of brand new.
Yeah.
It had so many twists and subverted so many expectations.
Yeah.
And it was just incredible. And I just think that, you know, when you talk about it, there's so many things you could just talk about this movie for hours. I
Yeah.
think. And it is so scary in
Yeah.
a sense that it's very suspenseful, but also if you look within at all of the things that really scare you,
Yeah.
this is a movie that really taps into a lot of those things. And I'll never forget, you know, hearing that story for the first time as a kid and just being so scared to take a shower
Yeah.
for, I'm not exaggerating, years.
Yeah.
It was such an effective
Yeah. Yeah.
story on me. And, you know, I'm so glad that I eventually watched the movie
Yeah.
because, you know, I too had ideas about it and was like, oh, I was wrong. Okay. Well, that's good. It's not as scary as I
I
thought
mean,
it would be.
honestly, truly,
Yeah.
in the spirit of how the first viewers, they had ideas
Yes.
about it and they were wrong.
They were very wrong.
And really, like, for me, the whole part with the mom and
Yeah.
it, like,
Yeah.
the reveal at the end with that, too, I was just like,
Yeah.
Yep.
Not only is she dead, he's holding her corpse in the house.
she
Yeah.
been dead.
Yeah.
Mhm.
She man. Oof. Yep.
That
No, go ahead.
that like divot in the bed too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
When she's looking around the bedroom,
Yeah.
and it's like, okay, so clearly the mom doesn't move ever.
Ever.
Mhm.
Yeah. In the
And
same.
but before
yep.
you know
Yeah.
the truth, it's
Yeah.
just
She's
like,
been decomposing there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Man. But this one really, the Hays Code too, it was near the end of the Hays Code, so he really helped push those limits of the Hays Code to kind of
Yeah.
help get that Hays Code out of there,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So
The kind of the straw that broke the camel's back.
yeah, it
kind
was
of a movie.
It was definitely one of those that was like, yeah, all right.
This
here we
has
go.
got to change now.
Yep.
Yeah.
When we discuss the history of the horror film genre, Psycho is almost always part of the conversation. Although there had already been several Alfred Hitchcock movies by 1960, none of them were like Psycho. This was a defining moment, not just for horror, but for cinema in general. It was a movie that seemingly broke all the rules.
When big-name filmmakers were all embracing color as the future, Hitchcock opted for black and white. Although he had the means for a big-budget film, he intentionally made his movie as low-budget as possible. And most shockingly of all, he hired a well-known actress and made her appear as the film's heroine, only to kill her a third of the way through the story.
Psycho masterfully conveys some of mankind's biggest fears. It was a fierce reminder that no one is ever truly safe, and that people may not be what they seem. Its very loose ties to a real story reminds us that horror can be found anywhere, although it's best to experience it in the form of a good story. So if you're interested in learning about horror cinema, make sure you give Psycho a good visit. We just mean the movie, of course, because if you ever happen to come across any creepy roadside motels with a large house and someone watching from an upstairs window, it's best to keep driving.
Move along.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you very much, everyone. That is a case closed. It's
pretty good.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
That's a frightening February close.
It sure
Oh.
is.
It's the last ever frightening February.
Yes, in its
Cry
current
your tears
form.
now.
Yeah.
Isn't that sad, though?
We know Adam will be crying tonight.
As we go on, we remember.
This frightening February.
No.
Oh, is
All
it
the
forever?
frights
All
we've
the-
had
together.
together.
There you go. She tried to squeeze in too many syllables there.
I did.
Oh, the February
his
Friday
mind
time that we had.
changes.
Yes.
Stop it now. I'm ending it here.
Oh, no.
Before we go, everyone, we'd like to thank our patrons, John, JD, Anthony, Shelly, Bob, and Jacob. Thank you guys so very much.
Thank you, guys.
You
We really appreciate you.
You mean the absolute world to us. We hope you
Yes.
enjoyed the extended version of this episode. There's some pretty great stuff in it this time, if I do say so myself.
Yeah. Well,
All right.
see you later, alligator.
After a while.
Crocodile.
We're so cute. Bye.
Later.
They're probably watching me. Well, let them. Let them see what kind of a person I am. I'm not even going to swat that fly. I hope they are watching. They'll see. They'll see and they'll know. And they'll say, why, she wouldn't even harm a fly.